It's nice to have a first aid remedy to hand when you need it, and it's nice to know what your first aid remedies are for. So this video, in addition to supporting the Gift of Homeopathy free download from my website, is also to help you be inspired and learn how to use homeopathic remedies at home in first aid situations. My name's Dawn Waterhouse, and I'm a homeopathic practitioner, a naturopathic practitioner, and I also teach meditation for forest schools and a whole range of other natural therapies. So aconite is today's remedy that we're exploring, and aconite is a really nice remedy for shock, fear and trauma, but it's a remedy for acute shock, a shock where it's just sudden and it comes out of nowhere. The patient may be screaming, crying, and it's also really, really useful for people that are generally really well, robust, strong, stocky people. Maybe not stocky, but really robust people, and they are well all the time, but when they're ill, they just suddenly become ill. So aconite is for suddenness of ailment. So a fever in a child that comes on very suddenly, a child that suddenly starts screaming for what may appear as no sudden reason, a child that may suddenly become fearful for what appears no sudden reason. That's an aconite symptom. So in fear or fright, think of aconite. Aconite is also really useful for dry, violent, hacking coughs that may be suffocative. So it's a remedy that I usually consider in croup in babies. It's not the only one, but it's one of the remedies I consider for croup in babies, where often it's around midnight they wake up struggling to breathe. It's a good remedy for panic attacks. For fear of flying is one of the examples, but panic attacks in general, if there's a sudden fear, you can use aconite and see if that supports you. It's not going to hurt you to take a few doses of aconite, even if it's not quite the right remedy, but it may support you to feel calmer and maybe consider other actions that will help you. So if there's too much sun on a person, they may become hot, throbbing, and headachy, but there'll be anxiety with it. So if your baby or child, or maybe even yourself, gets overexposed to sun and they become kind of like quite traumatized by the exposure to sun, and they're worried and fearful about it, then you're going to think about aconite. There are other remedies that support overexposure to the sun. One of those is belladonna, which I'll be covering more in another video. So you're looking a lot for the emotional thread that will be running through it. If a child with croup, for example, they will be fearful because they will feel suffocating, because croup can make you feel suffocated. There will be fear of flying. It's fear again. So you're looking for that fear running through. On a first aid level, you're looking for fear in aconite. Ailments for shock, where they're very emotional, where there's fear in the shock, you're looking at the remedy for that as being aconite again. So fear in shock is aconite. Another really nice reason for it is where there's fear of a heart attack. Someone might say, I'm going to die, I've got a heart attack. It might just be indigestion. Of course, you always follow the correct protocol if someone is fearful of a heart attack, but the fear is there, a fear of indigestion, a fear they're going to die. It's a really good remedy for eye injuries in the first onset, because if you have an eye injury, you can be very, very fearful. You're going to go into a state of shock. Of course, you still always follow the first aid needed for the first aid of treatment of an eye. Get to A&E. In all of the situations I'm explaining in aconite, you may well need to go to seek medical attention because the person's gone into a state of fear and they're going to need support for whatever they've gone into a state of fear because, for example, fear they've got a heart attack, fear that they've got lost their sight because something's gone in their eye, whatever it is, they may well need medical attention. So always, always follow up with medical support when needed. On a lesser level, where someone is troubled with post-traumatic stress disorder, they may need aconite for that, because they're constantly going to be reliving the fear of whatever has happened to them to cause the post-traumatic stress disorder. So that again may soothe and calm until you can find something more appropriate. Something that I'm going to add there is, as a parent, if a child has an injury and goes into an aconite state, it may well be that you go into an aconite state as well, because you're the parent, you're going to be feeling what they're feeling, and you're going to be concerned for their health, and you may also be fearful for whatever it is they're fearful of. So you may well do with taking a dose of the aconite as well. In all of these situations, I recommend having something along a 30C in your first aid kit, because it's nice and gentle, but is sufficient to help and support if needed. Another thing to look out for aconite is often they're worse around midnight. They may even have traumatic nightmares waking them up, night terrors waking up at night around midnight, not necessarily exactly midnight, but around midnight, because one of aconite's worst times of day is midnight. Aconite generally feels better for being in the fresh air, may have warm perspiration, may be better for moving, may be better for being uncovered and being restful. But the biggest thing we need to be aware of with aconite is the 6 Fs. So aconite will generally, in an acute situation, be fearful, frightful, frantic, fretting, may have a fever, and may be moving fast. Whatever symptoms they have, aconite generally is quite fast. As another example of using aconite, it's a really lovely remedy for mum and potentially baby as well in labour. If baby is born very, very fast, where I know a number of people where they've kind of like gone to go into hospital to have their babies and then found out sort of like en route that baby's not going to wait for them to get to the hospital when baby's delivered in the vehicle, or maybe baby hasn't even made it into the vehicle, that baby's kind of like decided to start appearing as a phone to go in, and it's ended up being an unplanned home birth. That situation is going to again benefit from potentially using aconite as well. So aconite has a wide range of uses. It's a really good remedy for fever, for fear, for teething where babies wake up fearful, usually around midnight, where they're panicky and traumatized, and maybe you feel panicky and traumatized too. It's a really good remedy for shock. It's a really good remedy for indigestion that may feel that you're going to die. It's a really good remedy for all sorts of things where you've got the fever or the shock or the trauma involved, or being very fast, such as in quick delivery of a baby, and also where there's fear and panic, so maybe fear of flying because you're going to fear you're going to die. So aconite can have that massive extreme fear where it's the end of the world and you're going to die. So that's just a brief synopsis, really, just a quick guide on how to consider using aconite in your first aid kit. It's a very good remedy for fear and fright. Consider aconite. If you've got any questions, then please do give me a shout. I use all really well referenced sources of material to produce this video, so everything has gone back to the original roots of over 200-year-old material, and it's been tried and tested on many case studies over the years, so it's very well documented with empirical evidence and proof from case taking and clients getting better from that. It's not something to worry about with your babies because it's a very safe remedy, but of course, if you're concerned, always seek the help of a professional homeopath first. So I hope this has been helpful. Please do give it a like, and please do share with friends to help them also use natural remedies. Always use alongside conventional medicine if that's what your GP recommends, and always seek support of a professional homeopath if you need it. Take care, keep well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.